Well, hello, RVA Owl Nesters. I wanted to take a moment to review with you our RVA attendance trackers and how we can use it to leverage our opportunities to communicate with families and ensure that we are partnering with them when we see issues of attendance, behavior, and academics. And so, without further ado, let's take a look at our RVA Elementary Virtual Tracker. As you can see, the virtual tracker is a spreadsheet and it contains information about our entire school. It's important to note that our school tracker is getting information from our student information system, or Aspen. And so whatever is in Aspen is also reported on this tracker. If there's information that's incorrect in Aspen, it will also be reflected on this tracker. So taking attendance daily and ensuring that the information is accurate is key. You'll also notice that at the top, you have our year-to-date attendance rate, which is awesome. We are at 95.61%, and we want to remain at 95% or higher throughout the entire school year. You'll also notice that there is a select date option, and anytime the date might be a little bit off, or maybe you've opened the tracker and it may have a previous date, you can click on the drop-down menu and select from the dates that are listed. It is important to note that this tracker updates overnight. And so to see today's information, you would have to visit the tracker in the morning. Okay, a couple other things about the tracker. You'll notice that there is a list of students, or a number of students listed as chronic students. And then we have our chronic rate. What does that mean? Well, according to the state of Virginia, students who miss 10% or more of school, they are considered having chronic absenteeism. And so we know that school attendance is linked to student success and academic achievement. And so if students are not here, we know they're going to have a harder time being successful in school. So what this tracker does is it helps us identify those students who are not here, and it gives us an opportunity to have a very easy way to document our efforts to communicate with families the concerns that we're seeing. And so this again is our tracker. It is the landing tab of the tracker documents. And I want to take you through a few more tabs that are super important. The next tab that I want you to pay attention to is the attendance summary tab. If you click on the student attendance summary tab, you'll notice that there is a gold checkbox that's there for you. And we're going to click it in just a few minutes. But before we do that, I want to also draw your attention to the chart that's on the left-hand side. The total absences is what it illustrates. And then in column B, you see the number of students. So in other words, right now for RVA, we have 43 scholars who have no absences in Aspen, which is pretty amazing. And as we go down the list, we can see how many scholars have the certain amount of absences that are listed. And while we have a lot of scholars who are doing a great job, we do have some scholars who are in the yellow, which means they're nearing that 10% mark of being chronically absent. And then we have some students who have hit that mark and maybe have gone over. And so in order for us to get a very close look at those students who are chronically absent, or perhaps on track for being chronically absent, this is where we'll go to our gold box. And so if you just click on that gold box, it does a check mark. And as you can see, it creates a table. This table is a live document that is presented or created for you right here in the spreadsheet. And it gives you a list of all of those scholars who are in the yellow and red. It tells you their ID number, their first and last name, their date of birth, what grade they're in, what is their serving school, or in other words, their zone school, and the number of absences they have to date. It also gives you an opportunity to click on a form link. And we'll look at the form link in just a moment so that we can review how to complete it. But the important takeaway here is to note that if we have a student with 8 absences, we want to be able to show that we have reached out to that family, because how would a family know how to support their scholar if they're not familiar or aware that their scholar is in fact chronically absent? Some families may not be aware that if they miss a certain number of days, then that is considered chronically absent. And so communication and documentation becomes super important. When we have a scholar with 13 absences and no documentation in this tracker, this can create a huge problem for our families and for our school program. And so how do we remedy that problem? Well, it is very, very easy, luckily enough. We would just click on the form link next to that scholar's name. When you click on it, it opens up into an attendance input form, and the form is already populated for you. What you can do is at the very beginning, it asks you for the type of input, and you have a couple options. The main ones are attendance, and you may have behavior concerns, maybe even academic concerns. A key thing to note about this form is that you can use this document for any kind of parental contact, and you should be using this document. If you've considered an OWL recovery plan, the OWL recovery plan process directs you back to this tracker and to this form. And so there should not be an OWL recovery process request form submitted until you have provided documented parental communication utilizing the student's form. And so again, you're going to put in the type of input for that scholar. You'll notice that the student ID number is already populated for you, and so is their name. In addition, their school name, their zone school name, has also been pre-populated for you. And then the only things that you would need to indicate on this form is the type of contact, whether it be a home visit, if you were able to go out and visit the family, perhaps through phone, text, or email, through alternative contact, or and the last two may not necessarily be as easily applicable, but perhaps you've attended a school-based attendance support team meeting with myself and Mr. Missler, and maybe you've attended a meeting with one of our school counselors or school psychologists. Those are very rare. More than likely, it will either be a home visit or an alternative contact that you're putting in. And then you're going to indicate your contact date, which hopefully is the day that you're putting it in. It's much easier to do this on the day of that you're making that contact. And then, of course, just indicate the results of that meeting. Did you make contact when you made the phone call? Yes, no. Was it a wrong contact? Maybe you've got some information to share with us that lets us know that this number that's provided in Aspen is incorrect. This information is super important because this is how we're going to be better able to support our families and our students. And this is simply by documenting our efforts to reach out to families. Once you've submitted all the information, you're going to click submit. And what that does is it will populate immediately in the most recent comments. And so as we're having conversations with our families, whether it be an OWL redirection conference, we can go to this tracker and we can pull up those comments and we can talk about our efforts to communicate with families so that we can have a true conversation about next steps and moving forward for that scholar. And so that in a nutshell is our tracker. Our secondary tracker works very much in the same way. And I'm just going to click on it here. The secondary tracker captures our information for our middle school and high school scholars. And in the same way, it is pulled from Aspen. So if the information is not in Aspen, it won't be here. But same thing, if I need to change the date, I'm going to click on the drop-down menu and I'm going to pull it up to my most recent date so I can get the information that I need. I know how many students are chronic in our RVA secondary school. And I can also click on our attendance. I can click on our attendance summary and I can click on my yellow box to create that table, and then I can see the scholars who have missed several days. And again, if you check the box now and you see a scholar that has missed several days and there's no comment, go ahead, no harm, no foul, click on the form link and make sure that you are communicating your parental communication using this tracker. Because the last thing I'll say about this is I know that everyone has different ways of tracking their parental communication, and that is perfectly fine. Some of us carry notebooks and we type down our notes or write down our notes. Some of us have our own spreadsheet that we use. Those methods are completely fine. And I am asking that every single one of us in the RVA nest use this tracker too, because this is the central place that we're looking when we go in for parental contact. So if you have it in a notebook and you need to go back and transfer it on the form, please do so, especially for our students who are currently identifying as chronic or on track for chronic. As you notice, you can go back and you can put in previous communication that you've had from a previous experience or previous date. It is super important that we are able to track our forms of communication with our families. If you have any questions or concerns about this process or need support, please reach out to me. You are also able to reach out to Ms. Braxton, our office associate or admin office associate. You can also reach out to Mr. Miles and Mr. Missler, who are working very closely with our attendants and with our recovery process. I truly hope this has been very helpful, and hooty hoot!